Kia ora, welcome back. This is the 25th chapter of the book or the resource entitled The Future of Learning. We've been looking at curriculum in this third section of the book. And we broke curriculum into a group of sections, and this is the third of those 6 sections. And in this one here we deal with this whole notion of intelligence and the learning process. And so we have to reconfigure in our own headspaces what intelligence is. Intelligence used to be how well somebody could remember something, how well someone could write a story, how well could someone actually solve a mathematical problem by using a rote-learned process. It was mostly about what could they remember. And unfortunately, of all our learning systems, this adaptation of our sequencing system to give us this capacity to learn via rote, it is the least equitable of all those systems. So we've got this distribution curve of capability, and that only exists when we do rote learning. So one of the things we're sort of saying to schools is we need to reduce that. And due to the fact that we now have devices like this, knowing material is no longer as important as it was. It's not unimportant, because without knowledge you can't build ideas and build concepts. But we need to be much more clinical about what knowledge do they actually need to know. Do they need to know about the Aztecs? Is that something that's really important? Should a child actually know about photosynthesis? It will still go on if they don't. It'll still happen every day. Does everybody have to know that? What is the knowledge that we all need to understand? So really what we're saying now is intelligence is a totally different thing. Intelligence is how well you can apply the learning process to actually build understanding that you need just in time. Not just in case we might need it in the future, but just in time. And so schooling now is around learning. And learning is now the absolute foundation of school structures. Right? It's not behaviour, because if kids are engaged and curious, behaviour issues go out the window. It's not about discipline, because in fact discipline was actually separating out and working on our own. We want them to work collaboratively, we want them to learn how to get on with each other, not just in social structures but in learning structures. How do they collaborate and collaborate really well? How do they manage themselves? And once again, here come the competencies surging up again. We need those capabilities. So as a result of the increasing number of astrocytes in our brain, when we come sort of 8 to 10 years old, we start to develop an enhanced capacity for mapping patterns and learning how to apply those patterns. And those patterns initially in a single context are called ideas, and when we actually start to apply those to multiple contexts, we build concepts. And for every concept we build, we've got to draft in these extra cells, these astrocytes, to actually map those patterns and automate them. And then the brain is constantly looking for those patterns. As a result of that, we have a slight problem. The more creative you are, the more patterns you map, the more ideas you understand and can exploit, then the more astrocytes you end up in your brain. And so Albert Einstein, his brain, when it was taken out and actually examined, in a number of areas in his brain, he had an incredibly high ratio of astrocytes to neurons. Okay. What happens though is that in the end, as you get older, you'll start to have these things called senior moments, where you'll sort of be racing into the kitchen, and when you arrive in the kitchen with full intent, you suddenly realise you've got no idea why you're there. And many of you will have experienced this. And the thing is, only smart people experience this. The more intelligent you are, the more senior moments you will have in life. So Albert Einstein was hopeless as he got older. Okay? He would forget how to get home. A whole lot of things happen when you start to really stretch that brain of yours. There is a consequence to that. But the wonderful thing is that, you're not losing your mind as such. This is not some disease. You've just got too clever for your own good. Okay? So as we age, we gradually get these more and more astrocytes interrogating our neural sequences, looking for these patterns. And the more interrogation goes on, sometimes the interrogation interrupts the sequencing process itself. Okay? So we have the absent-minded professor. You know, the absent-minded professor is just that, because in fact they've got all these ideas and concepts in their head that they've been playing with and building over the time. So they've got more astrocytes. As we need astrocytes, our brain converts neurons into astrocytes to do that for us. We can even create astrocytes from stem cells up in our gyrus in our brain as well, if we need to. So we have plenty of reserves here. We're not going to run out of cleverness. But just be aware that, you know, as you get older, you know, when you have those senior moments when you forget, you know, where things are and where you've put things, etc., it's frustrating, but just pat yourself on the back and think, well, at least I'm clever. Because non-clever people don't have these problems. Okay? So it's not about what you remember anymore, because, you know, that's the saviour, I think, for a lot of us. I mean, I've put into my phone here, under my contacts, you know, children, what they do, interests, etc. So, you know, I can quick flick through when I go to meet people and say, oh yeah, that's right, okay, and they think I've got a fantastic memory. I have not. You know, I've just worked out that, you know, as time goes on, I'm going to need to know that stuff when I need to know it. So intelligence is far more equitable than we think, because only our learning system of learning via rote, and that's an adaptation of our sequencing system, that's the only one that gives us a distribution curve. If we were able to compress that, that would be fantastic. But we're not going to be able to. That's going to take generations and generations of genetic enhancement until we actually get to be able to do that really, really well. And we haven't got that time. So we have to do something about the reading and writing issue. And that's a really tough thing. We've already talked about the notion that we can watch a video. We've been watching video for tens of thousands of years. It's called life. We've been taking visual imagery and processing it and understanding it very quickly. So we're really good at that. We haven't had 4 generations of seeing or 10 generations of seeing. We've had tens of thousands of generations of seeing. And that has allowed us to process that information very equitably. So watching a video is a much more equitable learning process than actually reading the book. And we need to start bringing this option in. And we already are through the flipped classroom and a number of other initiatives. And the rise of the flipped classroom really is around teachers making videos of their presentations. So when the kids go home, they can watch them. And then when they come to school, rather than actually have a lecture, they're going to have a discussion about the video they watched last night. And that's far more equitable. And equity is important now because we now have to have 80% of young people being able to manage their own worlds, not just the 20%. So the distribution curve around reading and writing, that was fantastic. Okay? It worked for us last century. It doesn't work this century. And this is a radical proposal, and people get quite upset sometimes about this notion of, you know, do we continue with reading and writing? To what point do we do this? Most of us are not writing much at all at the moment. Okay, if you ask yourself, how much do you actually write with a pen? It's negligible. We're finding kids now turning into examinations having to write things with a pen, and they can't. They're holding their hands because they haven't got the strength they used to have by doing lots of writing, because they're just typing things in, or recording this themselves and turning that into text, or videoing themselves. So we have some real challenges here differentiating between intelligence historically and intelligence now. Most people have, roughly speaking, the same capacity for intelligence. Thank you very much. Enjoy the reading and catching up with the videos, etc. And we'll see you in the next chapter, chapter 26. Thank you very much.